the KZ Spree camper. This is my camper. The nice thing about it is there's plenty of storage space. There's a drawer underneath here, a drawer underneath this side. The problem is there's also adequate storage back here underneath there. Now when they built this, there's storage that goes all the way back underneath this side of the cushion and underneath that side of the cushion. So in order to really utilize this, you got to take off the table. To get to it. So what I'm going to do is cut an access hole here so that I can utilize all of that storage space. So I'll move the camera and as you can see there's storage space back up underneath there and back up underneath there. So the first thing I'm going to do is when they do this, they put carpeting all throughout this whole area, and then they build the seats and everything on top of it. So I'm going to take a utility knife, cut along the edge, and bring out all that carpet so that I have a nice flat surface to put all my stuff on. So we'll come back after I get the carpet out. Okay, so now I've removed all the carpet, and as you can see, we have additional storage space way back up on this side. And then when I remove the panel from the other side, I believe you can see this drawer here. So what I've done, after I removed the carpet and I realized that this is all open all throughout here, so I cut a piece of 2x4 by about a 1x1, made some brackets, and I closed it off, and I did the same thing to the other side. So I've made a wall so that you can't get access from the outside. So once this gets opened up, all of this will be access storage from the outside, and I won't have to climb over the seat anymore. So what I'm going to do is I want it centered on that window. So I've taken a level, put it up on the center beam, made it nice and level, and I made a pencil mark down so I know where the center of that window is. So now I'm going to go outside and check and see what I've got to work with. Okay, so I'm really not sure where the floor is relative to this flat surface. So I took a measurement from the inside, but I don't really know where the line is because the frame itself is different on the inside than it is out here. So I don't know where exactly my floor is. So what I'm going to do is go on the inside and I'll show you from there. Okay, so I've made that line that comes down, so I know where the center is. Now I know where my floor is. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a drill get as low as I can, nice and level, laying it flat on the floor. I'm going to drill a hole. Well, that drill bit isn't long enough. So now I'm going to go outside and check and see where my drill bit is. Okay, so I drilled my hole. So now I have my reference point. You can see my drill bit coming through. So I'm going to go measure where that hole is from the floor, and it will tell me where my actual floor is. And I'll make a determination as to how far down I want to go so that I have a little bit of a lip on the inside. Okay, as you can see, I drilled my hole and I found that my bit went through. You can see it on the outside. So now I'm going to measure. Right now that lip would be approximately 1 1/4 inch. If I left it there, 1 1/4 inch above the floor. So I have a 13-inch door I'm going to put in. 13 inches would put me up here. So I'm going to try to maximize the opening space. So I'm obviously going to have to put a spacer or something across here after I get it in. So I'm going to drop it down probably about 3/4 of an inch from where I've got it now. Okay, so this is the access door that I'm going to use. All access doors come when they make them. They slide the door in, and then they put a plug in, and then they put a rivet in. So what I've done on this side is I drilled through, pulled out the rivet, and then forced it and pulled the plug out. And the reason you want to do that is you don't want to have all this weight when you're trying to do it. So you want to make sure that your frame on your access door is still nice and square. So what I've done is I've measured from corner to corner and across. I have 32 by 13, and that's going to go right like that. Okay, since this is 32 wide, I'm going to come over about 10 off center. That'll give me about 20 inches. So what I'm going to do is come over about 10 inches. I'll go over a foot, it don't matter. And I'm going to make a little mark. And then I'm going to come down 37.5. And I always like to measure and double measure. Okay. Nice thing about being on fiberglass with a pencil, it washes, it wipes off real easy. 30. Looks like I got a piece of metal frame there I have to work with. because it's the same size as the coat hangers. Coat hangers are great for working on projects. So what I'm doing is making a pin. I'm going to rest my frame on that so it doesn't move around. The nice thing about coat hangers, are always good for projects. And I'll save the rest of this and make a good hook when I need one. So I'll put that in. Once you get it set on your pins, using a level to get a nice straight line, find the center of your windle. Once you get it found, go ahead and mark it. Mark 2 different locations so you can check the distance from your window frame to make sure that the top is in fact going to be the same distance. You don't want to worry about level, because level is not relevant because your trailer might not be level to the actual ground. So you want to get a good visual between the window and the frame. Then mark all the way around, and that's where you want to cut. Then drill a hole just large enough for your saber saw blade to go through. Using your frame as a template, mark it out a little bit and then cut out a piece of cardboard about 1/4 to 1/2 inch larger than the opening itself. Make sure that you have it centered around the opening so that as you're cutting it, you don't mar the fiberglass on the outside edge of the frame. Make sure you put a couple pieces of tape on the inside. You can cut right through it with no problem at all, but you want to make sure that you don't mar that outside edge. Then, using the hole that you drilled, start cutting around the edge. Okay, as you can see, I've cut all the way around, but I hit something right here. I don't know if it's a bolt coming up. It's not a beam, a support beam or anything, because I didn't hit anything here, but I did hit something right here, so I got to figure out what's there. Or do I just take a sawzall and make a cut through there? Because if it is a bolt head, I'll have to see once. But other than that, I went all the way around it. As you can see, there's a little bit of styrofoam in there. So I made a cut all the way around it. The cardboard really helped. As you can see, I marred the inside piece, but the outside piece looks nice and clean. So I gotta take a look at that and we'll be back. The other one, but I don't wanna. There. It's always good to take it out of your saw when you're trying to do that. Put it back on your saw. Whatever it was, it's gone now. Okay, done cutting it out. Let's see what it looks like. Let's see if my frame fits. Oh, good. Just got to make a couple modifications there. Open that up a little bit there. We should be in like flint. I could not remove the 1x because that's the actual frame for the seat inside. So I reinforced it with a piece of angle iron, drilled holes in it. It extends on the opening 4 inches on each side so that it's good and sturdy. I also wanted to make sure that I had plenty of clearance, so I use milk crates to keep all my stuff in. So I made sure that I had plenty of room in the opening for it. If you notice, on the outside you have your fiberglass laminate, then you have it glued to a piece of 1/4 inch plywood, then you have a 1 inch foam that's glued to the plywood, then on the inside you have a 1/4 inch piece of plywood, and then there is the wallpaper or backing on the inside. Okay, to get the styrofoam out, I'm going to try 3/4 inch Dremel blade and wrap in between. Using the Dremel tool was very effective. It separated the styrofoam from the plywood very well. It scraped off all of the glue. It had excellent depth for clearing the space that I needed in order to put in my frame that you need, that you can actually secure your door frame to. Okay, now I'll just do the rest of it and get back with you. Okay, obviously this is less than 1 inch, so I'm going to have to rip down a 2x4. Actually, I got a piece of 2x6 that I'm going to use, because I'm going to use part of it so that I can make this curve. So I'll put it back in and cut it about that wide, so I have it come back into here and then start to make my turn. So this is all one solid piece. I have a 10-inch table saw. So what I'm going to do, so I can make the depth and clear the arch, I want to be able to rip it this way to make it narrower. So I want to make sure that when I cut this piece for that curve, that I'm able to actually rip the whole thing with one nice clean rip. So I'm actually going to cut this a little bit less than what my blade's capable of ripping. Actually, I ripped it right down the middle. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is figure out where I need to set my guard so I know how much to rip this down. So let's go take some measurements. Okay, I measured the distance between the two pieces of plywood, and it came out to 1 inch. So what I did was I used a small scrap piece of wood that I had, and I set my gauge to make sure that I had my 1 inch. I did a test cut, went to see if it fit. It was a little bit too big, so I moved my guard in just a little bit more and did a recut and got it just to the right depth that you need. Then I cut my two side pieces to ensure that they would be the right width. Then I rounded the corners of each of the pieces to ensure that when I did put it in to the pocket, that it would fit within where all the styrofoam is, because if you remember, when I used the Dremel tool, it actually followed the curve of the opening. 1.25 inches in. So I know how deep I am when I go in. Great. Now this will be reinforced coming around this curve. So what I'll do is I'll take my pencil, got it in place, and I want to cut just on the other side of the line. So we'll do the same thing to the other side. Put my 1.25 inches. 1.25 inches. This way I'll have plenty of meat to screw into to hold it in place. Good mark. And as you can see, we'll have plenty around here of good solid to make sure the fiberglass doesn't move at all. So I'm going to go get my saber saw and have some fun cutting. Okay, if you have a table saw or 2 sawhorses, one good way to cut is to use the space between it. You can actually move your gap, because actually what you want to do, kind of do it like a bandsaw, but this works great because you can leave it blade in between there and just move the wood. And then there's the other one. Okay, so what I'm going to do, it slid back in there a little bit too far. In order to grab a hold of it, and manipulate it where I want it. So I'll hold the bottom, that's the top. Okay. And it goes all the way over to right here, so this whole corner is reinforced. On this one, before I even get started, put a screw in. Okay, I decided to go with one solid piece. One edge to the other edge. Since I have wood. for now, just got to figure out how I'm going to attach it from the inside. Using that plywood that's in there. Now, even though you really can't see it because there's so much light, I've decided, since this is an access storage area, and nobody's really going to see it, I decided just to use some 3/4 inch drywall screws. That'll definitely hold. This in place. Good. So now I have it all framed in, back 1 1/4 inch all the way around, so I have 1 1/4 inch of wood to screw into. I've got metal tapping screws to go down to this metal piece here. And we'll see what it looks like when I put it in. Okay, I've got my putty all on. I've taken my putty knife, cleaned up the edges, cut the excess off the same way, and let's go put it on, see what happens. Okay, now that I've got all of it in place, got the putty on, got my screwdriver ready, power driver. Put this in place. There's the window. 16.5 and 16.5, right on the money. So, the first thing I want to do, actually I want to go get my screw. Okay, I've got my screws, set it in place. I'm going to measure it. $16.5 and 16.5, right on the money. So the opening is a little bit bigger, and in order to make sure that it doesn't move down when I screw the bottom screws in, or it doesn't pull up, I'm going to put the 2 side screws in, and that will stop it from going up or down vertically. Good.
Now that the access door has been installed, the only thing remaining to do is apply the caulk around the edges, then install the door clip that will keep the door open, and finish off the inside.
Well, now that the access door is done, that's all of the baskets that will be able to fit inside of there. That's how much space was not being utilized.